I've got a question from Lily, and the question goes like this. How does enlightenment change a person emotionally? Does an enlightened person feel intense emotions like anger, rage, hatred, jealousy, etc.? Can an enlightened person get angry or have an explosive anger? Or do emotions just flatten out? Can an enlightened person lose touch with presence for a moment and angrily lash out? Great questions, Lily. First, there's no such thing as an enlightened person. A person never really becomes enlightened. And this is the truth. It can't be understood by the mind. It just doesn't make sense. So if it's not making sense, let's just move on to the next question. How do these emotions change after enlightenment? Well, there's a lot of emotions that feel like they're not experienced at all or as much. They just kind of feel like they drop off. After enlightenment, something falls away. And what falls away is also part of these feelings, these heavy feelings that we feel, such as the ones that you listed here: anger, rage, hatred, jealousy. I'll add to that list. Guilt, blame, shame, even grief, despair, fear, pride, craving. There's probably some others, but these heavy, you call them intense, these heavy, dense, sticky emotions, they just kind of feel like they fall off. They've fallen away after enlightenment. Now, I'm not saying that you never experience them ever again, but in my experience, a lot of these that you've listed, anger, rage, hatred, jealousy, no, it's not my experience that I feel these emotions. And you kind of say it here, that do the emotions just flatten out? Flatten out kind of has this kind of feeling of that you become so emotionless. And that's not the case. It's more that you're just not feeling these heavy, dense, sticky emotions. And you're feeling more and more of your, what you call your true nature. That's what you're feeling, is you're mainly feeling like these, what would be considered these more positive, uplifting emotions. This acceptance, this wholeness, this completeness, this fullness, happiness, love, peace, freedom, this fulfillment. You're feeling that, right? You're feeling this lightness, this feeling that there's just this emptiness, and whatever arises in the moment, it's just felt fully. There's nothing in you that's resisting it. It's like you don't have a center, and that anything is just kind of flowing through you and is processed instantly. There's no resistance. There's no trying to hide from it. There's no running from it. So in that sense, it's not this emotionless state. It's not living like a robot. You're actually so alive. You're feeling everything fully, to the fullest. That you're so open that actually it's like your capacity to feel emotions has increased because there's no resistance. There's no restraint or cap to the emotion. You're feeling the emotion actually even more intense. Intense in a good way. Not how you've described it in the question. But intense as in the intensity of the emotion is experienced. that there's more of this sensitivity to the emotion. And you experience these subtle nuances of the emotion because you're more open, you're more receptive, you're more sensitive. And there's no resisting it. It's just seen as whatever's arising in the moment. It's just what is. It's life. Emotions are a good chunk of our experience of life, are they not? So there's no rejecting it. There's just a unconditional acceptance. And because you're just simply allowing everything to unfold as the present moment, you are accepting whatever arises, and you're completely present to whatever arises. Therefore, the emotion is felt fully. And processed what appears to be instantly. That it just kind of flows in and out of you. Because that's how emotions work. Emotions are energy in motion. And the energy is simply moving in and out. And if it feels like it's not moving in and out, and it feels like the energy is getting stuck, well, it's because there's resistance. Something's resisting the flow of energy. Therefore, the energy can't flow naturally. After enlightenment, there's just this natural flow of energy. There's just this natural harmony where it's like you realize that you are the ocean and these emotions are just waves that are simply arising and falling in you, as you, that they're just simply made of you. There's no some separate entity that's trying to resist a wave. It doesn't feel like what most people describe as the emotional roller coaster of life, where there's these steep or high ups and downs. So in that way, yes, it's kind of flattened out. I would say that it's stabilized. I would call it emotionally stable. There's a stabilization of these emotions. And like I said, a lot of these heavy, dense emotions are just not experienced. They just feel like they're not there anymore, like they've fallen off. That's because enlightenment is the realization that there's only you, that everything is you, that anyone that you experience is nothing other than yourself. And this is non-duality, that there's only one, there's not two, non-dual, not two. And a lot of these heavy, or you're calling them intense emotions, like anger, rage, hatred, jealousy, pride, fear, guilt, blame, shame, they all come from really this belief that we're a separate entity and that we experience other people, that there's this two. There's me and there's you. There's me and the world. So there's this duality. And when that's seen to be an illusion, that's not actually the truth, then a lot of these emotions fall away. because jealousy is only experienced by comparison. And it's only possible to compare when there's two. Take away the two and you cannot compare. And when you cannot compare, there's no jealousy. Pride, the sense of being better than someone, bigger than someone, even arrogant. So you need someone else in order for there to be pride. Shame is really self-rejection. And when it's realized that there's only the self, how can you reject it? Shame drops off. Blame, very similar. To blame yourself is another form of rejection. It's another form of judgment. And what's judgment? Judgment is really this separation. It's the duality, good and a bad, right and a wrong. So the judgment drops off. Therefore, the blame drops off. So a lot of these emotions, hatred, anger, right? Most people hate another person. But when every person is seen to be yourself, and it's only you, and what you are is unconditional love, it's really hard to hate. That's why it feels like they just drop off. It feels like some of these emotions that you've listed, some other ones that I've added, it just feels like it's like you can't access them anymore. That they've been transcended. You might experience grief, maybe not. Enlightenment, it's like you've already lost everything. There's nothing to lose. So there's this kind of sense of, how could you lose something that you don't have? You've already lost it. There was nothing to lose. Actually, how can you lose anything? Everything is you. It has this kind of feel where even grief just doesn't have that heaviness anymore. And because there's no resistance to the grief, it's there. If there's grief to feel, then you feel it fully, not trying to resist it or run from it. So yeah, these are like some of those heavy emotions that we really, get weighed down by, that we are drowning in these emotions. And with enlightenment, you're not drowning in these emotions. You've transcended these emotions. I'm not one to read scriptures or the Bible, but there's this belief of Jesus performing the miracle of walking on water. And I see it from my perspective as more symbolic. That water is symbolic for emotions, and walking on water is symbolic for transcending these emotions that we typically are drowning in. So you're no longer drowning in these emotions, but there's this feeling like you are walking on water, that you're above these emotions. And that seems like more of a miracle than physically walking on water. when you look and see how everyone is drowning in their emotions. And the last question here: can an enlightened person lose touch with presence for a moment and angrily lash out? Don't want to give an absolute answer of saying that no, it's not possible for someone to lash out. A lot of the conditioning may stay after enlightenment, especially if there's not a full embodiment of truth, if there's no integration. So sure, it's possible to have some old conditioning lash out, some anger, sure. Especially if maybe one was really angry before enlightenment. But if one wasn't angry before enlightenment, I don't really see how one then becomes angry after enlightenment. And can someone lose touch with presence? No. It's like I said, there's not really an enlightened person. What you perceive to see as an enlightened person actually is the presence. So Lily, thanks for these questions. These are great questions that you're asking. Continue to ask more questions. I love making these videos for you.